Hey, welcome to the follow up. We are continuing our series looking at the seven deadly sins. For the follow up this week, we have a little bit of a different kind of situation. We wanted to bring in someone who's very influential and important in our church. And so Emma Dickinson is in the studio. Is this a studio?
This is a studio.
We call this a studio?
This is a studio.
So Emma and Billy, her husband Billy, have been in our church for a long time. Incredible leaders within our church. Emma is on our board and specializes in leadership development within our church, so helps our staff kind of be dialed in when it comes to leadership. When I first met Emma, Emma was leading Young Life here in the city, which a lot of people within our church would be probably familiar with that ministry. Emma now, can I give an introduction?
Yeah, go.
I have an
This is
official
great.
introduction here. Okay, so Emma is the director of Champions of Love Foundation. Champions of Love Foundation believes that love is the most powerful force in the world. They support innovative and compassionate leaders. They identify charitable organizations led by individuals who show commitment to the communities they serve and demonstrate an ability to affect change and courageous leadership. She develops and implements grant-making strategies that align with the family's values and vision. Your role. Okay, here's your role. It involves building strong relationships. Is this okay?
This is great. I'm
Okay.
taking notes, actually.
Involves building strong relationships with grantees, community leaders, and stakeholders to assess needs and opportunities for collaboration. So you do a lot of work with connecting through Champions of Love. You connect great leaders with those who want to help great leaders accomplish the goals that they want to see to accomplish. That's professionally your role. Now, most importantly, of all of this, more important than your role at our church, more important than Billy, more important than Champions of Love, is you're both new parents to little SJ,
Yep.
who is amazing. And we're raising kids in the city.
Yeah, we're doing it.
We're saying to people, it's possible.
It's more than possible. Actually, this is a great place to raise kids. I
more
firmly
than
believe
possible.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into it. So I wanted to bring you in because you're the role that you play within our church and also the role that you play professionally in with Young Life. Obviously, you did a lot of work around giving and
Yeah.
generosity and greed. And so let's kind of talk a little bit about. Let's start here. Let's talk about your and Billy's kind of personal journey when it comes to practicing generosity. You guys have been big advocates for our church in talking to people and kind of sharing your story on why it's important. So let's kind of start there first. Let's talk a little bit about your personal journey when it comes to giving generosity.
Yeah, so I graduated college and immediately went on Young Life staff and made, I don't know, $1 an hour. $1 an hour. Could not afford to live by myself. And a really generous family, Jim and Polly McCauley, a couple, offered to house me for a year. So I lived in their home in their son's bedroom. All their kids had graduated and moved on. They fed me dinner every night. They got me snow tires because Buffalo.
Buffalo.
But maybe one of the more transformative things they did for us was that they sat down with us and their finances and they showed us how they spend money, how they invest.
Okay.
And
This is you and Billy.
This is the two of us. We're a dating and engaged couple.
Okay.
They're showing us their finances. They're saying, this is what matters to us. This is how we give. This is how, ultimately, we've decided to live way below our means. Not just a little below their means, way below their means, so that we can radically give and have a kingdom impact. And that was such a transformative experience for us that we said, there's no other way. We're going to commit to living below our means, even if we make $1 an hour. And we're going to strategically orient our lives around being as generous as possible. We're going to be so generous that if somebody looked at our budget, they would say, you're wasting, actually. We want to be hysterical givers is something that we say a lot. And so now, fast forward 10 years, we're married, and we have different jobs. We make a little bit more money than $1 an hour, but we are actively sitting with couples as often as we can and saying, let's be honest about what's really going on in your financial lives. Let's be honest about what you really care about. And how can we orient your heart and your lives around being generous as well. You don't have to wait till you become somebody or till you make a certain amount of money to be generous. This is for you now. And so we spend as much time as we can with people saying, let's do this. Let's be together. You can see our finances. We'll show you what we make and what we pay on rent, what we owe on our car. We're going to show you everything. There's nothing to hide because transparency is pretty powerful. Right. So that's sort of the journey that we've been on. We have our own family of origins, right? Like everybody comes from money of some kind. And I think we've had to reconcile sometimes a poverty mindset
Yep.
from our childhoods, sometimes a comfort mindset. But we're just trying to follow Jesus in this.
I love this, and we've talked about this before, and I've talked to people that you've talked with before.
Yeah.
What's the general, when you do that, when you sit down and you kind of lay all this stuff out in front of people, which, for some people, if they're being honest, sounds crazy, like absolutely crazy. Money tends to be, and we'll get into it more, but money is kind of like sex. We don't want to talk about it.
Absolutely.
We don't want to address it. There's a lot of probably guilt and shame that comes alongside of that. What is people's response when you guys do this?
People are surprised that we would tell you what we're paying in rent or what we're paying on our credit cards or what we're paying on our car, because we are sort of actively saying to you, this is not all that we are. We are not what we make. We're not what we have. And we don't want you to become us. We want you to be inspired by the hysterical level of giving. But I think it takes a wall down. Like the barrier to being secretive about money all of a sudden goes down when we say, we'll go first. We'll show you what's going on with us first. You can be brave and show us what's going on with you. What we most often find, though, is that there's a lot going on in the dark and in secret. There's debt that one couple, one part of a couple hasn't told the other. A husband hasn't told the wife. There's things they're not proud of. There's things they've done in a pinch. And we're sort of just trying to set the table and say, let's be honest. Let's pour out grace and mercy. And let's pursue healing together. But I think by going first, ideally, we're saying, we're in this with you. And we're not perfect. We've got a lot of room to grow. And there's things we have not figured out. And we're in this with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, the harmful, hurtful things grow in the dark, right? So we want to keep that stuff hidden. For Katie and I, our experience is a bit, that experience of this couple is not normal.
Yeah, no.
And what a gift to kind of set you guys up. I feel like for Katie and I, we've been married almost 20 years at this point, and really just kind of have, good or bad, have stumbled through it, especially in the first years. We were similar to you guys. We were making nothing. And even when I tell people now, what we were making, it just sounds like is that real life? I'm like, yeah.
How did we pay our bills?
I actually don't know how we did. And so we've had it's been a bit of a stumble through it. But the problem with that is, you make a lot of mistakes along the way. And if you don't come from a family of origin that really talks about it, and we have people in our church that come from, my parents really talked to me about it, really had me kind of lined up. And then we have other people that come from, we didn't talk about it at all.
Right.
And that level of ignorance or living in the dark is actually really dangerous because the world will disciple us when it comes to our money and giving and accumulating more and more stuff. Okay, so let's talk about, so that's with generosity. What about personal experience with greed? We talked about greed this past Sunday and the powerful effect of greed. Now, greed is not just money. It's a desire to hoard or hold on to power, resources, stuff, money. But let's talk a little bit about your own kind of personal experience when it comes to those things.
I don't know if you remember the first week you lived in the city of Boston, but I remember my first week living here. I remember walking around, specifically in Back Bay, and looking at Billy and saying, I do not belong here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm there.
I'm not gonna make it here. I don't fit in here. And I was basing that truly off of an aesthetic standpoint.
Correct.
I'm looking around at what people are paying in rent, what people are wearing, what people have, and I felt like I'm never going to be able to keep up with the Joneses here. And immediately then had to address, why do I want to do that?
Yes.
Why do I want to keep up? What is it about me as a 30-year-old adult that is still longing to fit in and be like everybody else? So there's some of that for me. But I also have a bit of a testimony around greed rising to the surface in really hard times. And I think there's a lot of people that can relate to this when you're in a particularly heavy season and you feel like you're coping, actually. Billy and I were in a difficult season of marriage a couple of years ago, and I felt like, man, there is not an amount of Amazon packages that could arrive at my doorstep that would make a dent in what's going on in our house right now. But I was consuming, hoping if I have more, I'll be more.
Right.
And that was not true. It was not true. So I feel like the city sort of feeds into that a little bit. You can have more. We have access to everything in the city of Boston. Everything is at our fingertips. But just because you can, not only doesn't mean you should, but I felt like what I experienced was I was not more whole because I had more. I don't know. What has been your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, and we'll get into the barriers for giving in a little bit, but I think for me it has been a desire for control.
Yeah.
So I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. I know you're familiar with it,
Yeah.
but and so control is like a big thing for
Yeah.
me. Not that I want to control others, but I don't want to be controlled.
Right.
And I need this need to hold on.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, when greed most manifests itself, is when I feel like I need to control. And so when in the Lord's teaching me in this, but to fight against greed is to, in so many ways, is to let go,
Yeah.
is to release,
Yeah.
and to be, practice generosity, these types of things that we'll talk about. And so that's a very hard thing for me to say, even though I've seen his faithfulness in my life, it's still hard for me now.
Yeah.
And I've experienced miraculous in so many ways. And yet it's when I feel this sense of security. Now, some of that comes from my family. Some of that comes from my family's relationship with money, my family's relationship with just how we navigated that and what we equated it to.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to deal with some of that kind of some of the own stuff in my life. And so that's been, for me, it's primarily about I need to control.
And if your question, and we're all asking these questions, if your question to yourself is, am I in control? I feel like my question would probably be, am I safe?
Yeah,
Who will take care of me?
correct.
Who's going to take care of me? And now all of a sudden I'm in the room with the Lord and I'm asking him, like, are
Yeah.
you going to take care of me?
Yeah.
Where is your generosity? And that's a really tender place to be with the Lord and asking him about his provision for you.
Well, it sounds silly to say I trust myself more than God.
Right.
But that is what we
Absolutely.
say.
Yeah.
If only I could do it.
I will muscle my environment
Yeah.
in such a way where I will be fine. I can be in control. I
Yeah.
can be safe. I can hold on
Yeah.
security at
Yeah.
all costs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell me about you as a pastor, though, not just you as a husband or you as a dad. Tell me about you as a pastor, talking about giving, generosity, greed in church in particular to people in Grace City and the congregation in general. What would be difficult about that for you from this standpoint?
Yeah, I've talked about this before, but we planted our church. We've been here almost 8 years at this point. So we, from the ground up, it was like, okay, how do we build this? Like, how do we feel this calling from God in our life? And so how do we do this? In the early days, I really didn't talk about money at all. I mean, I felt so much insecurity, probably from my own past relationship with money. And then I also just didn't want people to like grift. I didn't want to be a grifter, you know what I mean? And I was so fearful of what people would think that I was, if I'm talking about money, I'm coming at their money, or I'm trying to get something from them. And so again, I've talked about this before, but I really a couple of years ago, I don't know if you remember this, but I had to apologize to our church and say, hey, I've not addressed this particular part of Christian discipleship. Yeah. Because that's what it is. It at the end, it's a Christian discipleship issue. Yeah. In the same way that Bible reading, in the same way that you're talking about sex, in the same way with lots of things. And I just had so much insecurity and so much fear around what if I don't do this? Yeah. Now, the thing that I figured out, well, a couple things. It's such a dominant force in the life of people that you have to talk about it.
Have to.
I made a joke on Sunday where I said, if I talked about money as much as Jesus did, I would not have a church. Yeah. I really believe that.
Yeah, I do too.
Like, it would be every sermon. Like, we'd be sitting down on our sermon team and I would say, hey, I think we're going to do money and power. And hey, what are we doing this week? I think we'll do money and relate. I mean, it would just be, because that's how much Jesus talked about it. Once I started to see, okay, this is a Christian discipleship issue and it's something we need to address, that was huge for me. And then the other reality was like, hey, we feel this calling from God on our life to have a passionate, Holy Spirit filled church in the city, and it's a hard thing to do that. We've got to begin to address how do we practically and actually do that. And so I've seen nothing but the Lord's kindness and faithfulness and provision in doing it, and so a lot of it was just like getting this weird, I don't want to be a televangelist asking for the private jet on stage situation.
I remember that moment, and I actually remember saying to you, Brian, we need to be letting people say yes to who God's asking them to be. Yeah. And I remember saying to you, like, let us up there.
Yeah,
let
you
us,
did. Yeah, I do remember that.
Because it's a joy to be a giver.
Yep.
And let's not deny people
Right.
an opportunity to live out the calling on their lives, to be generous, especially here where we know the money is being stewarded in a beautiful way that's ushering in a movement of the kingdom of God. Asking people for money or engaging their generosity is very vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's very vulnerable because you're sort of getting at an identity in people where they'll either feel like high or low based on how they're doing financially or resource-wise. But it is inviting them to agree with who God says that they are. I've made you to be generous. I've made you to pour out. I want to pour into you so that you can pour out.
You know what's funny about it? This is like the shadow side of things. I would have told you, well, we're just going to trust God.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about that. We're just going to trust God. And so therefore we're not going to talk about it. We're not, it's not an issue that we need to talk about, which is a cop out.
Cop out.
What's funny now is I feel much more comfortable talking about it because I trust God.
Yeah, exactly.
Like now I actually trust God. And the manifestation of that is talking more about it. Because I'm just like, you know what? Let's talk about it. We need to talk about it. God's in control. He's sovereign. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about this.
Okay.
You work with a lot of really incredible, high capacity givers, generous people. People have the gift of giving,
yes.
right? And you that is a biblical principle that people have that. People that are high givers and not. Mm-hmm. What are characteristics or drivers that you see in the work that you do with people who just have a tendency to be really generous and really push back against greed in their life?
The number one thing I see is that their identity is set. They know that they are God's beloved either way.
Okay.
Either way. They are already sure of who they are. They're not proving themselves by being generous. That's not something they're participating in for the accolade or the award. They don't want their name attached to the scholarship, fellowship, etc. They want to do a really good work out of an overflow of who they know they are in Christ. Jesus has the final word in who they are, and they're giving out of an overflow. The other thing, though, that I see is that these are people who do not feel particularly special. They would not sit here and say, I am unique, I'm special, I'm set apart. They would not say that their generosity is something unique about them. They would feel like this is what God's entrusted to me, and it is my mandate, it's my responsibility to steward it well and to give it away. But they've taken themselves off the pedestal. They're not running the race for first place. They are letting things flow through them.
Okay.
Out of responsibility. They feel an obligation, not in an obligation of like legalistically, but an obligation which says, I haven't just been given things for my own well-being. I have been entrusted with things that I know can make a difference in the world, and it is my responsibility to move in that way. Whether it's finances, time, energy, whatever the resource might be, they're letting things flow through them. So their lives are fast. They move with a level of important but not urgent. But they don't think they're the best thing since sliced bread. They are humble, and they know that they're in a unique moment. Yeah. And they're going to do the best they can with what they have.
That's good. So before we start recording, you talked about some of these great leaders are generous in other ways.
Yeah.
That it's not just what you're seeing and observing is it's not just about money. Well, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, what makes a headline is X philanthropist gave X $1 million to X organization or university, etc. What doesn't get the headline is, leader of said organization walks to work every morning with guys that he mentors and gives them his ear and his thoughts on what they're working on. What doesn't make the headlines is getting on a long Zoom call with somebody and saying, what are you, giving them your heart.
Yep.
And the time is one of the most precious resources we can be generous with.
Right.
When you look at your schedule, do you have margin? Really generous people are leaving margin in their schedules.
On purpose.
On purpose. They're planning in advance to be generous with their time. They're not scheduling every minute. They're making sure they can show up for people in ways that are, not just about finance or publicity, but about real heart investment.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that you start to recognize when you get around really great leaders, kind of all over the spectrum, is there's a level of intentionality in their life. And this comes with money. This comes with schedule. It comes with everything. And I have personally benefited from men and women who've said, let me give you some of my space and time and be generous in that way. That, to be honest with you, in many ways was way more valuable
Yeah.
than any money they could have given me. I mean, there are set people where I'm like, keep your money, even though that would be great. Let me just have a little bit of space with you. And those who have done that have been just absolutely incredible to get to have that.
Yeah. I mean, it's priceless. What you're describing is priceless. But it goes to what you were saying before is you have to plan in advance to be that kind of person. You have to leave the margin and the space to be able to have the capacity to do that. High capacity leaders are looking into 2026, 2027 and deciding in advance who they're going to be then. They're not hoping to wake up one day generous.
Right.
They're making intentional plans today to give away what God's entrusted to them. And they're thinking far into the future. Not that tomorrow's promised, but they're deciding in advance who they're going to be then, and not just hoping it happens. They're not living passively. There's a level of activation here.
Yeah. Well, and they're also healthy about it, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't, and that's the thing that you start to learn is, man, I only have this certain amount of time.
Right.
And so I need to, like kind of this leader you were talking about, it's like, how do I take people, because this is what we're telling people. All of us have the same amount of time.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do you, intentionality of how do I take people with me on what I'm already doing?
Yes.
I'm walking every day.
Every day.
And so how do I get people in a desire to fight back against greed,
Yep.
in a desire to be generous? How do I give people the space to do this?
Yeah.
And I, again, have found great leaders where it's like, take people along with you.
Yep.
So you give them some space and time to be able to do that. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's talk a little bit about what are the barriers. Now we've talked about some on Sunday. We can get into those, but just in your kind of estimation, what keeps people from developing a generous heart?
You're not generous because you're not praying about how to use your finances.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah,
You're not praying about what's coming into your bank account and how it's going to go out. You see that as practical and logistic. It's not spiritual to you, and it should be. It's deeply spiritual how you're using what God's entrusted to you. Your prayer life should absolutely be including a regular conversation with the Lord, asking him, how would you like me to give away what you've entrusted to me? Use me, Lord. Use me. Go through me. That would be the first thing.
That reminds me, and we were talking about it, there's a story where Joshua, the Gibeonites come to Joshua, and this is that story where they recognize the Israelites are too powerful. They put on all the sackcloth.
Yep.
They bring the moldy bread. Like they do all this to deceive the Israelites.
Yep.
And they come to Joshua and they go, look, we've come from a long place, a long land. Look at our food.
Yeah.
It's moldy. Look at our clothing. It's totally messed up. And Joshua, who typically is a man who really goes to the Lord, he's fooled by them. And what the thing that's really moving about this story is the text tells us, and Joshua, so he makes a covenant with them to not destroy them, even though they were a powerful group here. And it says Joshua did not inquire of the Lord.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, and that was Joshua's sin. He didn't inquire of the Lord. So in many ways, we don't inquire of the Lord. We don't say to him, what ways can I be generous more and more? Okay, what else?
More and more. You have never shown someone what's going on behind the curtain in your life. You lack accountability. We lack accountability. Do you have a trusted friend? Do you know Billy Dickinson? Do you want me to introduce you to Billy Dickinson?
I have introduced many people to Billy Dickinson.
Do you have a trusted person in your life who you are willing to show your credit card debt to? Or do you have a person in your life who you would show your calendar to and say, tell me what you think. Help me. Right. Help me. Take on the posture of a humble learner and have some transparency about what's going on behind the curtain. I think when things come to the surface, that's where God does crazy transformation. Yeah. When things are in the light, where the darkness can't survive anymore. Would you be willing to bring things to the light and talk about them honestly?
Don't you think it's like anything, right? You will not have a robust love for the scriptures if you don't have a plan in place for reading the scriptures.
Exactly.
It just doesn't, formation doesn't happen by accident. We don't drift into godliness. And so it feels like to me, it's the same for generosity, for giving, for fighting back against greed. If we don't have a plan in place, which is sitting down with someone and saying, help me work this thing out, it's not going to work.
Now, if you're like me and you despise looking at a spreadsheet.
This is most people.
You don't like a spreadsheet. You hate Rocket Money. You would rather just not know. Like, correct. I'm going to send you $10 via Venmo for coffee, but I really don't want to get more intentional than that. It stresses me the heck out. I'm going to just be the first person to say I'm with you, but there's not another way. You
Yeah.
have to make a plan. There's not another way to be generous than to be intentional.
If it stresses you out at a maximum level,
Yeah.
it probably says something true about your relationship with money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's probably now poking something inside of you that you need to deal with.
Absolutely. I also think there are ways to make these conversations less scary. It
think so.
takes some practice. You're going to sit down with that trusted friend who's going to help you and who's going to build a rhythm in you.
Yeah.
Billy and I
think
sit
that's right.
down once a week because I'm this person who does not want to look at the Excel sheet. We sit down once a week, have a finance party. Okay? I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on the podcast,
Yeah.
but wine is served.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
fun because we're actually, what we're not really talking about is, oh, that Starbucks was for this
Yeah,
or
why'd
that
you do
Amazon.
that?
We're
Right.
talking about that for 5 minutes. What we're really talking about is how can we be strategic?
Yeah. What's in
now?
your heart? Like what
Yes.
do you want to accomplish and how do we get there?
And the things we've been able to do are past my imagination because we have sat down on a weekly basis and said, what's going on
Yeah.
and what can we do now?
Yeah. Okay, let's talk. This isn't a question, but I think we need to talk about it because
Okay.
people have this question. What is, and we had a financial stewardship class on Sunday, and I know that there was a lot of jokes around this, and so I came up with Dylan, who Dylan is a whiz. He leads our financial
best.
team.
He's
If
the
you don't know
best.
him, he's a whiz. What's the percentage? Like, how do we determine? Let's talk about it for a second. How do we determine how much goes to church? How much goes to other organizations? Like, how have you guys, and we can talk about us as well, but how have you guys dictated or figured that out?
First of all, I want to say whatever Dion said.
Yes, same.
Okay.
I don't think he named it yet.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that was the thing they were
Well-
poking him about. Maybe this coming week he will.
I think there's two kinds of people.
Okay.
There's the kind of people. There's one kind of person that says I really need to know the percentage so that I can do the bare minimum.
Yep.
And then there's the kind of person that's not looking at this at all because they have the scarcity mentality, which is like, I need actually every percentage.
Yes.
I'm hesitant to say 10%, 12%, 15% because of that first person
Yep.
who's looking for the
That's right.
minimum. I really think Scripture points us to be hysterical givers, to be radical
Right.
and over the top in our generosity. If we feel like the love and the mercy and the grace of the Lord has been poured on us in a generous way that does not make any sense, that while we were still sinners, Christ would come and die for us
Yes.
and usher us in to salvation now and in the time to come, then our generosity should reflect that level of movement. It should be abundant. So we have set a personal minimum that's going to church.
Yep.
We have set then a second minimum that's going to other organizations like Young Life or Hope International or different,
Sure.
maybe somebody who works here at Grace
Yep.
City. And then we have a third category called discretionable giving.
Love it.
So every month there's a pocket of money put aside where we don't know what's going to happen. And we're just like trying to be ready for the
Open-handed
Lord.
for the Lord.
And sometimes it carries over and we get to help somebody buy a car. Or
Sure.
sometimes it's small and we're buying somebody dinner. But we have set the bar low. Now, what I will say from a practicality standpoint, we haven't set the bar low. We have set the bar and we're only building on it.
Yep.
Right? On top of that. So
Sure.
church, and then we've got this extra giving on top
Yep.
of that. But what I will say is every time we get a raise, the first thing we do is increase our giving.
Yeah.
So in the last couple of years, I've made some professional changes. Billy has gotten promotions at work. Every time we're making adjustments to our giving. And just on a personal note, because this is actually kind of tender for me right now. Oh boy. Having a baby, like you mentioned, is pretty expensive. I don't know if the people know. If you don't have a
It's
baby,
dumb.
let me tell you
It's dumb
something.
expensive.
Babies are expensive. And we sat down with our budgets.
I have a teenager. Get ready.
I don't even want to,
Get ready.
I'm just 10 months in, okay? And the math did not math.
Yeah.
We sat down with our budgets, looking at what childcare would cost, what her general costs would be, and the math was not adding up. And the temptation in that moment to say, let's just pare down on some giving. Let's just stop giving to that person, that missionary. Let's stop giving to Young Life. Let's decrease how much we give to Grace City. Was absolutely in the room. And I give all credit to Billy for just saying, like, we're just moving. We're not even discussing that. Like, we'll cut everything else before we cut that. And to be courageous in that moment and say, it's just not even a conversation. Like, we won't let the world encourage us to be anything but generous. First of all, selfishly, because it's our joy. But secondarily, because we know it's what God's asked of us, and we're unwilling to be doing anything except for what God's asked of us. And it's really caused us to ask the question, what do I really need in order to say yes to what God's asked of me? What do I really need? What can go? I'm not going to do anything less than what God's asked of me. That's what I actually need.
That's so good.
Okay, tell me about your turn.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, for us, our largest amount goes to the church. And it's been that way since the beginning.
Yeah.
So, this was before I was in ministry. It was before we planted a church. And, it's funny because for the longest time, we were like I say this more as a joke. I mean, we were the largest givers of Grace
Yep.
City.
Yep.
Because it was like just
Yep.
us and a few people. Anyways, so that's always our largest amount. And then past that, yeah, we give towards, I mean, we do at least 10%, but then we give towards Compassion International, International Justice Mission. We give towards someone who's serving with Crew overseas. I mean, we have variously given to people throughout that. We want to have this kind of posture of generosity, even when it hurts.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
never unless you have the gift of giving, it usually is like, oh man, this is really, really tough. And it's funny because you get your giving statement at the end of every year, and you just kind of look at it and you're like, that's a lot of money.
Yep.
But again, it is. I can't think of anything better than saying, man, we are funding this work all over the world.
Yeah.
And what a better way to use ultimately what's God's anyways in the first place. What a better way to do that than to do it in that way. So yeah, I hate to have the percentage conversation. We've always done 10%.
Yeah.
I know you can't make necessarily a biblical argument for that. It's more of an
Yeah.
Old Testament policy. Yeah. Anyways. All right. So let's talk about this. Let's end here. So let's talk about this idea of being a gospel patron.
Yeah.
So I know that you've read this book. I've read this book. There's a book by John Reinhardt called Gospel Patron, and he's actually has 2 books now. And it's really this idea. It is a biblical idea, but basically what he does is he highlights 3 individuals who've played a significant role in kind of Christian discipleship, the history of the church. So he looks at George Whitefield, he looks at John Newton, he looks at William Tyndale, who did who translated the Bible,
Right.
still exists going to this day. And he basically says all of these incredible men and women throughout the history of the church who've done remarkable things always have a gospel patron behind them.
Yeah.
So it's this idea that there is someone funding the work and helping, using their resources and their ability to help fund the work of this individual. We see it in the scripture.
Yep.
We know that it says that there are a group of wealthy women that are funding up Jesus' ministry and the disciples and who are going along. We know that Luke, at the beginning of Luke's gospel, Theophilus, he talks about Theophilus. Many people believe Theophilus was a gospel patron that financed the fund of that particular book. Can you just cast a vision for what it looks like to be a gospel patron?
Some of us are being asked to stand on stages with microphones. Some of us are asked to be in a physical trench with people. Some of us are asked to care about refugees. We're all being asked to do different things. But maybe a common thread would be that we can all be standing behind somebody in the way that Joanna, Susanna, Mary did behind Jesus and saying, I will make a way for you. What those of us in ministry uniquely know, I think, and many other people, many other categories of industries know this as well, but the distraction of poverty it's the injustice, but the distraction. Like, if you want to make a room impactful, make it well-funded.
Yeah, that's right.
If you want to set people free to run and chase after what the Lord has entrusted them to do, has asked them to do, don't ask them to be thinking about the nitty-gritty of the finances in the background. Come alongside them and do that on their behalf. What you're providing, the vision I'd like to cast, what you're providing is stability. You're building a solid ground for people to run on. You are laying bricks down that will be the church. When I think about, we look at the life of Jesus and we're so in awe that he was a bit of a nomad, moving, present with people. That's not possible.
That's right.
It's not possible to move like that in the world unless you've got people taking care of you from a resource standpoint.
Yeah.
Who are those of us that will rise up and take care of people so that they can go and say yes to what God's asked them to do? Whether that's a nonprofit organization or it's the church itself, your generosity is lifting someone up and sending them out and saying, go do the very thing that you have been created to do. And I got you. I'm right behind you. I know that when I was on staff with Young Life and I was fundraising, when somebody gave to me, I felt like they were with me.
Yeah.
There's not a better feeling in the world than feeling like you've got people arm in arm with you.
Yeah. I'll say this. Obviously, Jesus wasn't making stones into bread. And so that would have been amazing. Let me end here. I'll end by saying this. I think that, Katie and I have benefited greatly from just gospel patrons in our city and within our church. And I think in general, I mentioned this on Sunday, I just want people to increase their vision for what they think and to get away from accumulating more, hoarding more away, and just simply say, what a better way to get to the end of your life and say, look what I accomplished with the things that God entrusted to me. And our world wants to sell us on a vision for accumulate, hold, hoard, have all of these things and enjoy. Again, it's not wrong to travel and to have things and all those types of things. But they want to sell you that that's the vision. And I just want to say to people, imagine you get to the end and it's look what we accomplished with the things that God gave us. That's the kind of vision that I ultimately want to be a part of. So, hey, we need to close. We're a little over time. Thanks for joining us. Emma, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. Be sure to follow us along. This coming Sunday, we're looking at gluttony. All these things are building together, and so we'll be doing gluttony. But again, thanks for joining, and we'll see you on Sunday.